All right. So yeah, I wanted to take a look at like basic example of a Great Expectations project. So this is like quite simple. Let's just go through the like basic workflow. Yeah. So the first things first is to install all of the requirements. So for this project, the requirements look something like, never mind, something like this. So just great expectations, and I'm using 0.18.12 for this example. And you can install that either with pip install requirements.txt, or I'm using Poetry, so Poetry install. All right. And the next step is to initialize the GX project. So this creates some Great Expectations files to the local disk. And this is totally optional, but I do recommend doing this. Makes many things a whole lot easier. So we can do that by running this Great Expectations init command, which then asks if we want to create all of these files, and OK to proceed, yes. And so it has created a bunch of files, which should come up here in a moment. All right, well, let's take a look at that in a second. So the next thing is to import the library. So from import Great Expectations as GX, so make everything a little bit shorter. And next, get context. So this basically just takes all the configurations in this GX folder and loads them up into this context object that we use for basically everything. And next, connect to a data source. So the syntax looks like this: context.sources.add_pandas, and then we give a name to the data source, so example data source. All right. And then we create an asset for that data source. So add a CSV asset. So in the data folder, I have an example.csv file that looks something like this. So nothing fancy here, just fruits with weights and prices and 3 fruits. Quite simple, nothing fancy here. And the path, file path or buffer, is data/example.csv. And then let's run that. And now we have an asset. All right. So now we have connected to the data source, and we have access to that. And the next step is create an expectation suite. So I like to use this add or update expectation suite command. So the context, if there is no expectation suite with this name, then it just creates a new one, or if there is, it just updates it. So basically wipes it clean, and then we can like start over. And this is just the name of the expectation suite, so example expectation suite. Let's run that. We need that for the validator, and the validator is the like interesting part that we use to actually create the expectations to the suite. And this works like this, that we have context, and there's a function called getValidator that takes in an argument a batch request, which we use the asset to build a batch request, and then it takes the expectation suite as well, so that it knows where to store all the expectations that we create. So let's run that, and then validator.head shows the first 5 lines of the file, or like all of the files that the asset found. And for this case, they're just fruit, weight, price, apple, banana, grapefruit, the file that we saw already. And then the next step is to actually create some expectations. So to demonstrate how this works, I've I have a couple expectations here. So the first one is expect table row count to be between. So this expects that there should be at least one row in this data and no more than 100 rows. And then we can run that, and success true, so it shows that everything went fine. Observed values were 3, so it found 3 rows, and 3 is between 1 and 100. So all good there. And the next step, next expectation is expect column values to be in set. So this basically just takes in a bunch of values and checks that the column fruit, in this case, which is specified here, only has values that are included in this set. And as we can see, apple, banana, grapefruit looks good. And let's run that. And yes, success, true, result, there's the element count. No, there was no unexpected counts, or like all good, nothing interesting there. And then finally, validator.save expectation suite actually saves the expectation suite so that we can use these expectations that we defined here later on. And then let's take all of these and wrap that into a checkpoint that we can then reuse later on to actually validate some data. All right, so checkpoint, add or update checkpoint. So it takes on, again, if there is a checkpoint with this name, it updates it. If not, it creates a new one. And then it can take in a validator object. There are a bunch of other things that we can use to create a checkpoint, but I find this quite convenient to just pass in the validator. And then we can run the checkpoint with checkpoint run, which performs all the expectations, all the data checks for the data that we had, the example.csv. And then we can look at result as success. So it returns a dictionary with a success key showing if everything went fine or if there were some problems. And the data validation was successful, so the result success is true. All good there. And then finally we can open the data docs with context.openDataDocs, which opens the data doc. So Great Expectations creates a documentation for what validations have been done, and that's called data docs. So basically it's a report that shows if everything is good or if there were some problems. So here we can see that there's a runtime, batch ID, expectation suite, all that good stuff. And we can click it and see a full, like, detailed version. What checks were performed, what were the observed values, how many checks were performed, which checks were performed, if everything went well or not. Here's the status, overall status succeeded, and then all of the individual checks succeeded just fine. So yeah, that's the overall walkthrough for a basic Great Expectations project. And then we can briefly look at the file structure, the project structure in this. In this folder, I do prefer using Visual Studio Code for that. So let's get rid of these. And yeah, so we have, apparently I can't zoom that, that's unfortunate. So we have Great Expectations.yml, so YAML file. And this hosts this is the main file, which hosts the like different configurations. So here's the file path of Buffer for our like example.csv, and all the configurations for where to find everything. So expectations are in the expectations folder, checkpoints are in the checkpoints folder, and so on and so forth. And checkpoints are in a separate YAML file, which lists the data source name, data asset name, expectation suite name. All of the different configurations are stored in here. And also the data docs are stored in the uncommitted /datadoc/local site, and here the index.html is the file that basically hosts all of these and shows this is the index.html file. So yeah, that's about it. The source code for this project is all available, and you can go and check it out and play around with it. Right, thanks.